So a little bit about my background. I'm an artist, curator, and I really am interested in making art for spaceflight, but also bringing in a lot of different perspectives around space to prove that the sky is literally not the limit. Our creativity is boundless, and we can continue to push to new heights when we work together. Off to the next slide. I feel like the darkness is fun, right? Are we liking it? I mean, you can see me if you want, but okay, it's like a movie theater. All right, so this is a project called Living Light. I talked about this a couple years ago when I was at the conference, when I did a joint talk with my husband, Tim, who runs Relativity Space, but I wanted to go deeper into art this time. So if you head to the next slide, this was a project with space perspectives. I approached this company to see if I could put a small artwork on one of their space flights, and then they told me I could actually design the entire capsule. So I partnered with my artist collective Beyond Earth, all women, and we designed this structure connecting deep sea with deep space. So we used AI to create the inner organ designs of the sea space jellyfish, giving a nod to aquatic ecosystems. So it represents over 1,000 different species, and it was launched around World Oceans Day. If you head to the next slide. It was super fun because we also got to, use AI to collect these different forms and then just start to merge them together to create these inner organs. Next slide. This is a video if you want to tap. What was so fun is we got to work at Kennedy Space Center. So I got to geek out as being an artist inside where the shuttle used to park. And so there were some supersonic jets in the back, which was also pretty cool. And pilots were like, what in the heck are you making over here? But yeah, so we wanted to use iridescence, glow-in-the-dark materials, lots of interesting substrates to mimic aquatic species, and then co-create with space to make it transform when it goes into space flight. All right, you can head to the next one. So this is the Stratolite balloon. This is the Kennedy Space Center, and it's about the size of a soccer field, and the sculpture itself is about 16 feet tall. So then we attached it to the balloon. Next. Headed out to where the shuttle used to land. This is the shuttle parking lot, basically. And then it all took off for a 6-hour flight. And then we got this incredible footage back from space. This is a video if you want to play. So you can see how the sun is transforming, the reflections, the colors, it's coming to new life living in space. I was so excited to get this video. So to me, I'm really interested, and I'll talk about this later on, but how can we use the Earthrise and the overview effect to build and rekindle our connection to our home planet, especially not just to represent humankind, but also all of life here on our planet, celebrating the many inhabitants. So I'm really into biomimicry as well. This was a sculpture also created with my artist collective. Next slide. And this is at the main entrance of Relativity Space. And the idea was looking at the flight of a falling maple seed. It creates this beautiful spiral pattern. And that was actually used for early avionic designs with the helicopter propeller. And so this is actually on a motor. If you head to the next slide. Oh, this was a demo. So when you press the button, the air blows, so you can actually see the spin of the maple seed. And then we'll just show a quick video of what it looks like in action. So we used a chrome finish, so that way it mimicked some of the 3D printed parts at Relativity. wanted to use similar metals, so that way it was a nod to both their production, but also taking it to another level. And so much of Relativity's 3D printing technology is about organic design and structures and, really building things, growing it from the ground up. And so that's why we wanted to bring in this component of nature and how nature really helps us design the future. A key part too with choosing this chrome finish is so that way when viewers are looking at the piece, they actually see themselves ascending up the staircase to the cosmos. I don't know if you saw the Pixar movie Soul, but it has the, the moment with the falling maple seed. It's a special moment. And it's fun because you can get the sky reflected in the sculpture as well. So it's a way of connecting the individual to the greater cosmos in this upward spiral to space. All right, next slide. Okay, another project, To Space from Earth. This was a project where you're always thinking about how can creativity evolve as we move off world, and how can we choose a medium that matches the message. So if you head to the next slide, my message was looking at our power by numbers by doing this acrylic painting of a crowd of people. At the time, we were in lockdown. It was 2020, and I was thinking a lot about how our human connectivity can affect us for better or for worse. So then thinking about how do I take this painting into space? I'm not going to put a clunky panel on a spaceship. So let's think of another storage mechanism to tell our human story. So that's when we learned about Twist Bioscience, which is producing DNA data storage. Next slide. So what that means is actually digitizing the artwork. So I worked with my collective. We made these art images, converted it into binary data, sequenced it into the ATGC of DNA, and then it's stored in this small capsule of dehydrated DNA, which we launched to space. If you head to the next slide. This was really fun. Some of you might have been familiar with this project, but it was called the Moon Gallery. And artists from around the world each made a miniature art piece. You can see the DNA capsule right there. And so we got footage of it floating in zero gravity. And then next slide. And I got this awesome photo from space. Another moment of just seeing, wow, like I grew up in a small town in Idlewild, California. I never ever thought that my art would go beyond this world. And so when you get footage like this sent back to you, it's pretty profound in terms of thinking like, wow, my fingerprints, my story, my message has gone beyond Earth. And what does that say about what's possible, not only for me, but what's possible for art as a medium? Let's get outside of the white gallery walls and let's start pushing those boundaries. Next slide. So this is a project that just landed on the moon, Great Pause project, also created during the global pandemic. A few friends and I were really bored and we built out a website called The Great Pause. And some people here actually contributed to it. Next slide. So we collected images and photographs and written testimonials from around the world about people's experiences during lockdown. And it started to scale. We got images from India. If you remember, there started to be riots in LA. People were uploading this incredible footage. There was so many photographs of people peering out of their windows. And it just became this incredible collection of images documenting this important time. So we had this etched onto nickel nanofiche, which is a tiny material. Next slide. This is actually one of the nano pieces at High Seas, but this is part of a larger project called the Arc Mission Lunar Library. Next slide. And it was put onto the side panel of the Intuitive Machines lunar lander. Next slide. And it landed. And then it tipped over, but our art was still on it. And so it's this idea of I just find that the COVID pandemic was one of the first times that people truly understood that we are all interconnected, for better or for worse. There's this invisible thread that ties us all. So then to be able to discover this archive, this memory of a global challenge while reflecting back on Earth was really the mission of building alternative futures and thinking about, how do we want to change things so this doesn't happen again? How do we work together so that way we can prevent challenges like that? So Google Quantum AI. I did an art residency with them and got to paint some murals, which was really fun. And then they got to be wrapped around quantum computers. You can see this is some iridescence, so you actually don't get that vibrant blue color until you shine a light on the painting. So I had two paintings on top of each other. One was showing the hidden world, which is the quantum world, and then the other is showing our Earthrise moment, but through the lens of quantum. So next slide. This is at my studio in LA, getting messy. And yeah, so on PBS NewsHour, Forrest Stearns, he's another amazing space artist. Yeah. And so he had asked, he wanted each artist who contributed to create a mural that was related to a UN World Heritage Site. And I wanted to do Earthrise because it's still debated that the first place where humans landed should be a World Heritage Site. It hasn't quite happened yet, but I found that was an interesting perspective shift in terms of thinking about the UN and how can we start to use this distant perspective to see our world in a new way, which the quantum technologies enable us to do that. So it's referencing quantum tunneling, quantum superpositioning, and some other things, but I know we've got some tours to do. So yeah, so underneath the cylinder is a quantum computer, which basically looks like this bright gold jellyfish. It's really intricate, but they've done a beautiful job at Google to make this technology be a reminder about the stewardship for our Earth and how do we use quantum technology to better all of us and not just design technology for the future, but human cultures for the future. I don't think Frank is here yet, but this is a painting that I made a few years back about the overview effect, inspired by so many stories of different astronauts. And it was this idea that borders and boundaries disappear when you're in space. And when you look down, it almost becomes one living, breathing organism. And so I wanted this to almost appear like a coral reef. In real life, it's 18 feet, so it's huge. It's got rubber bands and textures, and it's really intended to show that all of our networks, whether it's our social networks, our technology, our humanity, it's all linked. And so that was really the goal with this piece. Thanks. Next slide. All right, so then I did a residency at Planet Labs, now known as Planet, where I got to use all their Earth imaging. So I later then went to Japan and learned traditional paper making and talked to mission control to have them photograph this area of Japan that I was creating the artworks. Go to next slide. So what's interesting with people at Planet Labs is they don't love when these clouds pass over because it affects the satellite imagery. But to me, it's actually the clouds that show that time is passing and that weather is changing. And it gave me a memory of my experience in each place. So I did these large scale pulp paintings of, it's Yoshinagawa, Japan. And all of the fibers of this paper was actually grown and collected along the rivers. So it was a way of painting the land, made from the land, building that connection, and using satellite data to do so. So that's the pulp making process. It was so fun. And then I added some watercolor details. And actually, years later, someone came to my house who was from this area of Japan, and they were like, oh yeah, my home is right there. So that was a cool moment, because I want people to see themselves in these works. And that's really the draw of, yeah, how do we cultivate new Earthrise moments through the lens of art? That's really what I want to try doing and continue doing. So then we got to etch art on satellites. So it was along these themes of looking at crowds of people, our power by numbers, how we can affect each other. So then analog astronaut training. Next slide. That's me at High Seas. So really loved being part of that crew. Michaela was an incredible commander. And then Sion, you really took the charge as our mission control, and we had a few others out there as part of the crew. So this actually enables me to explore the role of creativity off-world, test prototypes for artworks made for space, and look at the role of creativity for inducing flow states and connection between crews to lower stress in these types of situations. So it's kind of this dual space for research. And then gotta go zero G. This is a video, but in these zero G flights, definitely always testing different materials. It was such an incredible and peaceful experience. I don't know if anyone has ever done a float tank, but it was very similar, where you just can lift yourself with a finger, and it almost feels like this deep state of meditation. Hey, who's that? Okay, next slide. And then I did a residency here, actually in 2016 at the Biosphere 2 when they had an artist in residence program. So it's good to be back. And sailed up near the North Pole as part of a residency. And all of this is to show, this journey through extremes. And when I was talking to astronaut Nicole Stott, she had shared with me that the process of astronaut training was going to these extreme places. And I didn't realize I was already doing that through my art practice. So it was really cool. I was like, well, now I might as well start doing analogs because I'm halfway there. And then some underwater training. Next slide. Okay, so before we play this audio track, a lot of people ask me, like, why do we have to send humans to space? Why can't we just send robots? And I think a perfect example as to why is the origin of how we got the Earthrise image, which was actually taken by accident. It was not on the shot list. It was a clumsy kind of remark in terms of capturing this fleeting image. And I think this audio track really captures the spontaneity of creativity.
Oh, yeah, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, that's pretty. Hey, don't take that, it's not scheduled. Get a color film, Jim? Hand me a roll of color, quick. Oh, man, that's great. Quick. Down here, just grab me a color. A color exterior. There. That one? Yeah, I'm looking for one. C368. Anything, quick. Here. All right. Yeah, I got it right here. Let me get up. It's not clear. Bill, I got a phrase that's very clear right here. Gus? Take several, Rick Serval up here. Let me get the right thing. Hey, calm down, Mama. Oh, I got it right. Oh, that's a beautiful shot. 250 at F11.
Yeah. So Earthrise.
Oh, very, very visual. I did. I picked you up.
This goes on for a minute. I don't know. We're on time. There we go. I just love that. I mean, that is creativity and raw expression right in the moment, and it was almost missed. And I think it's those moments that make our space exploration so invaluable. Bill Anders says that the whole reason that we went to the moon was to discover Earth. And this is just such an iconic image that was the most globally connected image in the entire world. That was our first self-portrait. And so next slide. But I think we've been a little oversaturated by it. It's on our iPhones, it's on our screensavers. We live our life with this satellite data that we've almost become numb to the sensitivity of the Earthrise image and how that shifted our thinking around our environment, around each other. Earth Day was created because of that image. So next slide. So I've been really captivated by this idea of how can we create a call to action to artists and designers and makers and creatives to start to cultivate new Earthrise moments so we can see the world in a new way again and again through the lens of art. Next slide. So to do so, I started this project, one more press, which is called Imploration. Cian is also part of this project, which we're really excited about, as is a couple others here. And it's an art book that's 350 pages that features interviews with futurist artists, makers from around the world who have all really started to think about their relationship to the cosmos through a process of introspection and creativity to then take that further out into the greater cosmos. So this book will be out next year. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Like time check? Oh yeah. What are you working on now? Ooh, I have a bunch of giant airplane pieces in my studio, and I'm making these paintings inside of airplane windows. And then I think I am gonna backlight some of these windows inspired by that Earthlight concept. We got to bring that down. Yes, yes. So really excited about that. Along with Imploration, we also have an LP and we have a Wilco track. Esmeralda Spalding's part of it. It's just an incredible lineup of artists and makers. And then it will also be an exhibit and a partnership with MIT Media Lab. So it is blooming, which also means I'm like fundraising and running a side hustle, but it's coming together. Is it time? Yeah. Thank you.